All right, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to one that I'm particularly excited for. We are joined first of all, before I even begin my introductions, let me start with my perfunctory stuff that I always say. First off, our forum continues to thrive. I believe we are presently at, I think 14,000 members or so. I haven't checked in a while, but do invite your friends that are professionals. The more the merrier. The more people who we have who join us, the better off we are, the better off we are collectively, in the knowledge that everyone's information and everyone's knowledge augurs and produces something greater than their individual knowledge, a collective body of work. And so we're very grateful for everyone who continues to contribute and is part of our forum and these ongoing video sessions. Similar to before, I'm going to mention that while our forum is private, our videos here are public. They are put in a variety of sessions and online forum. So anything that you say can and will be used against you. Just be aware of that. Today, I am very, very grateful to have Lorne join us. Lorne Shuman actually has deep experience in the area in which he's about to speak. Lorne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you have over a decade, I think maybe a decade and a half of working with FCT as their director for title insurance matters. You have deep experience in what it is that title insurance is designed to do, deep experience in what title insurance covers. Moreover, you are a practitioner on the other side, and you're aware of the claims that people routinely make in title insurance. You've been an active participant in our forum for years. We appreciate the knowledge and that you bring to the table, your expertise, and the fact that you're willing to share that with us today is something that we are incredibly grateful for. So without further ado, as it's 10:05, I'm going to turn this over to you. I'm going to let you do your thing. And please feel free. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. First of all, I hope you can hear me okay. Yes?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Okay. Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here and share my knowledge with your group. I'm going to start talking. Before I get going, I'm just going to give you a little introduction of who I am, a little bit about where I came from and what I do. My name is Lorne Shuman, and I am a real estate lawyer. Prior to being a real estate lawyer, as Mark indicated, I spent, I don't even know how many years, I can't remember anymore. I think it was 1998 till 2011. I worked at First Canadian Title. Now, when I went to work at First Canadian Title, I was a practicing lawyer, and then I went in-house. And when I went to First Canadian Title, this was the beginning, the incipient stages of title insurance. Nobody knew much about it, but it was a very interesting idea, and I was very interested, and I joined them. I was there for, like I said, about 11 or 12 years, and then came back. That's right, I came back to private practice. Can you believe it? And I have been practicing in my current location since 2011. Just briefly, my office is located in the Yonge Sheppard Yonge Finch corridor. Been in the same building practice has been around for almost 30 years, and we've been in the same location. I am primarily a residential real estate lawyer. I do a little bit of commercial, not much, and our office does also a lot of estate work, so wills, estates, powers of attorney. I don't want to talk too much about myself, but if you're interested in learning more about my firm, you'll see that there is a link to my website. You can learn all about us and all the wonderful things we do. But I am primarily a residential real estate lawyer. One of the benefits I have is that I have a deep knowledge, as Mark said, of title insurance, because I was there from the beginning. And I know all the war stories about title insurance and how it got started. And it was all fascinating at the time, because it really was a new product that nobody understood. And now everybody understands it because everybody uses it. When I was with First Canadian Title, I started in the underwriting department. So my job was to underwrite policies. So if there were title problems, lawyers would call us and say, can I get coverage? What kind of coverage can you give me? That was enjoyable. And then I morphed into a business development person because that was my real fun, was teaching and educating. So I would, because lawyers knew nothing about title insurance and in fact feared it and thought it was the beginning of the end, I would go around and meet real estate lawyers that I knew from practice and educate them and hopefully get them to buy policies from First Canadian Title. And I did that. I was quite successful at that. And I became a business development person. They said, you're doing great. Keep going. You know, the sales are going through the roof. Whatever you're doing is working. And I went across Ontario. So I know a lot of real estate lawyers. I know all the big players. And I have to mention, this is a disclaimer and disclosure. I'm not here to promote First Canadian Title. I work there. I use them because I obviously have a relationship with them. But as you will see, there are other title insurance companies. And I will talk a little bit about that. But again, I'm not here to promote one insurance company. You will notice as real estate agents that the lawyer generally determines which insurance company they use. There are 3 or 4 of them. They're all good. Some are better than others. But I'm going to be very even-handed in my analysis. I'm not even going to get into that. But the lawyer determines which title insurance company they use, and there's various reasons why they use them. But I'm not here to talk about one. I'm here to talk about title insurance generally. And what I want to do in the time I have is explain it to you so that you have a basic understanding of what it is, what it costs, how long it lasts, how do you get it, what does it cover, what doesn't it cover. We'll talk a little bit about underwriting. We'll talk a little bit about claims, and we'll also talk about fraud because that is the hot, topic that everybody loves talking about and doesn't understand how this could happen. But obviously, I know how it happens because I've seen it happen. So I want to first talk about basics. What is title insurance? When you boil it down to its essence, title insurance is an insurance policy. You have insurance on your car, you have life insurance, you have car insurance, you have disability insurance, you have all kinds of insurance. This is a specific type of insurance that is designed to protect a homeowner and a lender for real estate. So if we go back in time in history, title insurance has been around 100 years in the United States because their land titles, land registry system, whatever you want to call it, it's not as good as the Canadian system. So they needed something to support their system and give protection. So title insurance has been around in the United States. They close deals, always close deals based on title insurance. And in fact, in some states in the United States, lawyers aren't involved in real estate conveyancing. It's all done by title companies. The title insurance companies have been licensed in Canada since the 60s and didn't become active until really the late 80s, early 90s, when they realized this is a big country and there's a lot of opportunity to really change the way real estate deals closed and make it better, make it more efficient, and ultimately give the buyers and the lenders better protection. Now, before title insurance was around, lawyers would close in Ontario, lawyers would close deals the old way. And that really hasn't changed much, except that they would do these full 40-year title searches. They would find these really arcane and ridiculous title problems and fight it out because of a misdescription of a meets and bounds on a deed. And they would close deals based on the strength of a lawyer's opinion. So before title insurance, deals were closed based on a lawyer's opinion. Lawyer would give an opinion saying you have a good and marketable title to this property. And if the lawyer was wrong, the remedy for the homeowner or the lender would be to essentially sue the lawyer saying you gave me an assurance that I had a good and marketable title and I don't. And somewhere along the lines, there was a mistake. And the remedy was to cure it by going to court. fast forward to title insurance comes into the Canadian market, and they inject essentially what is a risk taker into a process that was very risk averse. They said, we are going to assume some of the liability and risk, take it away from the homeowner, the lender, and the lawyer by introducing an insurance policy. So the way it worked was, didn't change essentially what the lawyer did. The lawyer still has to do a full title search. There was a misconception at the beginning. Some people thought, oh, if you get real estate, if you get title insurance, your lawyer doesn't do anything. They don't do a title search. Not true. Title insurance companies would not issue a policy unless a full title search was done. So the lawyer continued to do the search. What it changed was some of what are called off-title searches. So for instance, in the old days, if Mark was closing a real estate deal before title insurance, he would have to do various searches with the municipality for things like building and zoning and subdivision compliance and bylaw compliance. These were expensive, time-consuming searches that often didn't tell you much about the property. Well, the title insurance company said to lawyers, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to obviously continue to insist that you do a title search, but we're going to eliminate the need for you to do some of those costly and inefficient off-title searches. And they said that by not doing those searches, we are going to assume the risk that those searches came back clear. So in that respect, title insurance made the lawyer's job easier. And also, from the lawyer's perspective, eliminated some of the fault aspect of it. So as a real estate lawyer, when title insurance came in, it was feared. There was a lot of fear mongering going on saying this is going to be just like the United States, where in some states the lawyer doesn't do a search. Or the lawyer's not involved. And that was not the intention or the case. It was to change the way the lawyer worked and also eliminate some of the work that the lawyer did on the file, but took an assumption of risk away from the lawyer and the client. So as lawyers gradually got more comfortable with it and understood it, they began to use it. And today, I would hazard a guess to say that I can't imagine any real estate lawyer not getting title insurance. My practice in my firm is I will not close a deal without title insurance, period. I've never had anybody, maybe I shouldn't say never, maybe once I've had clients say, why do I need it? And I'll explain it to them. But now clients are knowledgeable and understand it and actually ask if we're getting it. We get it on every deal. No questions asked. If you are going to tell me you don't want it, then I will not be your lawyer. I will tell you to find somebody else. It's frankly not worth it for me not to get title insurance. And it's better for you. So I don't go down that road. Now, there is no law that says a consumer must have title insurance. In other words, if your client's buying a house, they don't have to get title insurance. However, if they're getting a mortgage, I guarantee you that the lender will require it. In other words, the lender will say, Mr. Buyer and Mrs. Buyer, if you're buying this property and you're getting a mortgage, you must get title insurance for us, the lender. And if you're getting it for the lender, you might as well get it for yourself as well. We'll get into the policies in a minute. But although it's not mandatory by law, the lenders will require it, so you're going to get it, and you might as well get it for yourself. It does not replace the lawyer. It adds value to what the lawyer does. It is a risk assumption tool. It shifts risk away, and it eliminates some of the off-title searches. Now you have a basic understanding of what title insurance is. It's an insurance policy. And just like any other insurance policy, we'll talk about claims soon. The only way you can collect on title insurance is by having a claim. And just like car insurance, you only have a claim when you have an accident. That's when you make a claim. House insurance, your house gets broken into, you have a claim and you have to prove your loss. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. So now that I've given you a basic understanding of what title insurance is, one of your main questions is, what does it cost? And I'll give you an idea of what it costs. First of all, it's important to understand that unlike other forms of title insurance is a one-time premium. That's a big difference. You all have home insurance, car insurance, life insurance. You pay that every year. And if you stop paying it, your insurance is canceled. Title insurance is a one-time premium. When do you get it? Typically when you buy the house. As part of the closing process, your lawyer will arrange for title insurance. They will order the policy on your behalf. They will collect the premium and remit it to the title insurance company. Once you have it, it's always there. You can't lose it. It's always valid. Now, there are situations where it becomes void, but we'll talk about that. You know, essentially when you sell your house, you no longer have an interest in your title. Therefore, you don't have a policy anymore. But essentially, you could buy a house today, own it for 50 years. Your policy is still valid. There's no deductible. There's no, I have to pay a premium every year. So if you think about it logically, the biggest asset you have is your home. The most important insurance that you really have for your home is title insurance. So it is the best form of insurance, and it is inexpensive compared to other forms of insurance, which really reaffirms my point. Anybody that doesn't get it is crazy, and I won't deal with anybody that doesn't want it. Okay. For example, cost on a $1 million house. I'll just pick that as the norm. Your title insurance premium to insure both your lender, which will require it, and you will be about $850. Okay, $850 one-time premium, and you have insurance for as long as you own that house. Now, how much coverage do you get? That's a great question. Typically, the title insurance companies give you coverage for the amount of the value of the house. So if your house is worth $1 million, you've got $1 million worth of coverage. Not true though. Why? Can't speak for other, but I believe all the insurance companies have what's called inflationary coverage, meaning you actually have 200% inflationary coverage in the policy, meaning that even though you have $1 million house and $1 million on your policy, you really have $2 million of coverage. They give you extra coverage. Now, in some cases, as we've seen lately, I've had a client that buys a condo, bought it many, many years ago for $300,000. That condo might be worth $900,000. They're technically underinsured because if they have a total failure of title, which is rare but could happen, then they only have really $600,000 worth of coverage when their house is worth, condo's worth $9 million. Can they get more? Yes, they can. They will sell you more if you like. And there are other ways to get additional coverage. But generally speaking, you don't need it. But it's available if you really want it. Again, it lasts as long as you can. There's no deductible. And there are things in the policy which are called continuation of coverage provisions, meaning that the husband and wife own a property and they pass away and the property gets transferred to their children. There could be what's considered continuation of coverage provisions, meaning the children could benefit from the coverage that the parents had when they bought the policy, although exceptions may apply, and you should consult with your lawyer to determine if that's the case. I already said how long it lasts. It lasts as long as you own the property. Now, how do you get it? Like I said, on a purchase transaction, the only way you can get title insurance is through your lawyer. You cannot call the title insurance company when you're buying a property and get it yourself. They will not sell it to you. They have to have a lawyer on side. Why? If you think about it, that makes sense. The title insurance company wants to know when they're issuing a policy that the lawyer has searched title and done everything that they require in order for them to issue a policy. So it's in the best interest of the title insurance companies to work with the lawyers so that they have an assurance that, hey, there's a lawyer behind this who's hopefully done their job, done a search, told us what they found so that we can rely on that to issue a policy. So the widespread conspiracy theorist at the beginning who said this is the beginning of the end of real estate lawyers, when the title insurance companies came in, they're not right. They're incorrect. The title insurance companies are there to work with lawyers, in my opinion. I'm going to get some arguments on that from some lawyers who said, and I'll admit to this, that when you're refinancing a policy, when you're refinancing your home. So let's say you own your home and you're getting a mortgage. There are title insurance companies that will issue a policy and you don't need to go to a lawyer. Okay, that's true. And a lot of lawyers were upset because what happened with the title insurance companies is they took away the refinance business from the lawyers. The title insurance companies went to the banks and said, you don't have to wait 2 weeks for your lawyer to close it. We can do it a lot quicker. And that angered a lot of lawyers, justifiably angered a lot of lawyers. But in my opinion, that business was going anyways. So on a purchase transaction, you can only get title insurance with a lawyer. And there is a regulation in the Insurance Act that says title insurance cannot be sold without the title insurance company getting an opinion from a lawyer. Okay. The only way, there is one way to get title insurance without a lawyer, and that is if you own your home, and I throw this out to people who don't have title insurance. So if you've owned your home for many, many years, let's say you bought your home in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even in the early 90s before title insurance was widespread, and you don't have title insurance, you can still get it. How do you get it? Well, you can get it through your lawyer, or you can get it directly from the insurance company. There are different types of names. One of them is called an existing homeowner policy. You can call, I believe, I know with First Canadian, you can call the insurance company directly and they will get it for you, or you can get it through your lawyer. So that's the only way you get it, is if you already own your property and you didn't have the benefit of getting title insurance when you bought the property, you can get it still after the fact. Okay, now let's talk about who the title insurance companies are. There are different companies. I already mentioned that I worked at First Canadian Title, so that's the company that I'm familiar with. The other companies are Stewart Title, Chicago Title, and Title Plus. Those are the four. I don't think I'm missing any. Those are the four big ones. I'm not going to talk about market share because I don't know, but I would say that the top three probably have most of the lion's share of the business. Title Plus is the lawyer's title insurance company. So it's issued by, I shouldn't say the Law Society, it's issued by the regulatory body for lawyers. So it's designed to be for lawyers. They have a unique process and have some unique coverage. But generally speaking, in my opinion, the premiums are pretty well the same. I could be wrong. I haven't compared them. I'm not going to compare them. The coverage is generally the same in all the policies. I don't believe there's any significant differences. There are tweaks. There are some benefits to others, but they're pretty well all the same. They're all designed to cover the same stuff. Who decides which company they use? It's the lawyer. So I decide who I use. And that decision for me is based on obviously my relationship, but speaking for other lawyers, they use whoever they want. They use whoever they're comfortable with. They generally have, if they're doing any kind of volume real estate, they will have a relationship with the insurance company. So that, for instance, if Mark has a problem on a deal, he can pick up the phone, call somebody in the underwriting department and say, here's the situation, what kind of coverage can I get? I can do the same thing. And other lawyers do that as well. So it's who the lawyer is comfortable with, who they believe offers the best coverage, and most importantly, in any insurance company is claims. Are they going to be around to pay the claims? Are they going to handle claims fairly, expeditiously, efficiently? So if a lawyer has a bad experience with a title insurance company that they've been using for years and feels that their claim was not handled properly, they can switch companies. They can use whoever they like. And lawyers will do that from time to time. And the title insurance companies are aware of that. It's a competitive market. And the title insurance companies are well aware of the fact that they have to be fair and they have to give good service. At the beginning, when title insurance came out, it wasn't necessarily price, it was process. Lawyers wanted something that was efficient. In other words, could they get a policy quickly? And all of the title insurance companies, I believe, are all have processes designed so that the lawyer or the clerk ordering the policy can get it quickly. Now, that has changed a little bit recently with all of the insurance companies because of fraud. Now, remember, if you think about it logistically, we'll talk about claims in a second. Your title insurance company is selling a policy for, let's say, $1,000. And if there's a major claim, and there are claims, could be a building permit claim, could be a fraud, could be taxes. They have to pay that claim. And sometimes those claims are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And sometimes they have to hire lawyers, retain lawyers to pay claims. So they pay claims and that $100 premium is gone. They have to sell a lot of policies in order to pay claims, to pay the bills, and keep the place running. So yes, they do it on volume, but keep in mind, they have to protect themselves. And the way they protect themselves is with the lawyer. They are relying on me when I order a policy to give them the goods. In other words, tell them what's going on the file and if there's a problem, and disclose things that concern them. So I have an obligation, to be honest, to the title insurance company, but I also have an obligation to my client. And in fact, there is a rule of professional conduct that says I, as a lawyer, have to assess all of the available options to assure my client's title. What does that mean? It means I have to tell them what I think they should do. And I have to, at least at the beginning, discuss title insurance. Now, I take it further, and I'm sure most lawyers do as well. I don't say to them, I think you should get it. I say, you are getting it. And if you don't want it, you tell me, and I won't be your lawyer. Now, most lawyers title insure every deal. There's no issue about that anymore. But at the beginning, the Law Society wanted it to be a discussion with clients. Now it's not even a discussion. I get it on every deal because I think it's good for the client. I think it's a better option. So I beat that rule. And also the lenders bought into title insurance from day one. They wanted it. Why wouldn't they want it? If you think about it, as a lender like TD, Royal, CIBC, Scotia, if I haven't missed anybody, even the smaller lenders, they all want title insurance because it benefits them. And guess what? They don't pay for it. So when your client buys a house and gets title insurance, they're paying the insurance premium for themselves as the homeowner, and they're paying the insurance for the lender as well. So it makes sense all around. All right. I've talked about how great it is. Now, the proof is in the pudding. What does it cover? This is really the important stuff in my presentation. So I could sit here and drone on and talk about, look at a policy and say there's 28 covered title risks, okay? But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to break it down into what I think are the important components of an insurance policy. So remember that it's an insurance policy. And I tell clients, you will get a copy of the policy with your report. And it will be a nice gold or blue policy, and you're going to keep it. And in that policy jacket, it's going to have covered title risks. I don't even know how many there are, about 30 of them. And it's going to have exceptions and it's going to have exclusions. So I want to talk now about the covered title risks. So there's a policy for the homeowner, and there's a policy for the lender. Okay. Essentially, what title insurance gives the homeowner and the lender is an assurance that their title is marketable. What does that mean? It means that you as a homeowner have a marketable title, meaning when you go to sell or refinance that property, you'll be able to do that. And if you can't because of a covered title risk, then you have a title insurance claim, which should be addressed by the insurance company. So it ensures the marketability of your title. Now I haven't talked about this. What is title? Title is a bundle of rights. Title is a piece of paper. Your deed is your title. Title is your ownership interest. So the insurance company says we insure title. It is title insurance. It doesn't cover things like the roof is leaking, the fridge broken, foundation cracks. That's not title. Now, in some situations, depending on the nature of the claim, it could be title and it could be more than title, but it's not really designed to cover those types of things. So I want to talk about the first type of coverage. Number one, simple title issues or defects. Things that you would understand, like liens, like a mortgage. Okay. There's an old mortgage on your title. Okay, and it never got discharged. That's covered by title insurance. Property taxes. Close your deal, and you find out after as a homeowner that the seller didn't pay the property taxes for the last year. And now the tax department doesn't care. You're the owner, they're coming after you. That's covered by title insurance. Now, that can be avoided if your lawyer has got a tax certificate, but some lawyers don't get a tax certificate. Why? Because the title insurance companies say they don't have to. I don't agree with that. We get tax certificates on every deal. I don't want to deal with a client after closing saying, why did I get this bill for $5,000? Although I know the title insurance company is going to cover it, I don't want to deal with that. Condominium liens. The closing is today on September 21st. And then in October, my client gets a bill saying the seller didn't pay the common expenses for the month of September. That would be covered by title insurance. Okay. The second head of coverage that I want to talk about are survey issues. Initially, when title insurance came into the market, the big selling feature was no survey, no problem. Meaning that if you were buying a house in the old days, you had to have a survey. Because the bank wanted to know that they weren't giving you a mortgage and your neighbor, in effect, owns half your property. So lenders wanted an up-to-date survey of the property, which was great for surveyors because they were doing surveys all over the place. Title insurance comes in and says, no survey, no problem, meaning that you can close a purchase without a survey. And if there was a problem revealed by a survey after closing, like an encroachment, like an easement, then the title insurance company would step in and fix it in many different ways. So title insurance eliminates the need for a survey. Now, I want to be careful on this. I would never sit here and tell real estate agents, don't get a survey, or tell a homeowner you don't need a survey. Survey is probably the most valuable document that you get when you're buying a house, because it shows the location of your property, the dwelling, the structures, easements, encroachments. It's very important, but nobody gets them anymore. Doesn't mean you shouldn't get one. So I would never say to a client, don't get a survey, but in many cases, we don't see surveys anymore and we rely on title insurance. Okay? It's not a replacement for a survey. It is not. It is not as good as a survey. But people don't get surveys and rely on title insurance in any event. So survey issues that are covered, things like encroachments onto your property. You buy your property, you didn't get a survey. It turns out that after your neighbor makes the allegation that they own part of your property. How can they determine that? Well, maybe they have a survey. If that is true, and if that is something that would have been disclosed had you got a new survey when you close, that's going to be covered by title insurance, and they will have to negotiate a settlement. I remember early on in the days, we would get a survey, and sometimes we'd have a crazy situation where somebody built a pool over an easement. And the local municipality says, guess what? We need access to that easement. And you are the homeowner, and you can kiss your pool goodbye, because the city could come in and say, we have a right over that pool, and we want to exercise that right. That could be covered by title insurance if you didn't have a survey. Title insurance, I should say, and I'll talk about exclusions in a minute, they don't get involved in fence disputes. They don't like those. So fence disputes between neighbors are generally not covered, because you can see how easy it is for people to get involved in fence disputes. And the title insurance companies generally don't want to get dragged into that. Okay. The third type of coverage under a title insurance policy are what I call municipal issues. These are big, and these can be really important and can get really ugly. So, for instance, remember how I said earlier in the old days, lawyers would write to the building department and ask them if there were any work orders, deficiency notices, open permits against the property. And you would send your letter with your check to wherever. City of Vaughan, City of Etobicoke, wherever and you would wait and wait and wait, and you would wait for this letter to come back, and hopefully it would be clear and say, no work orders, no open permits. Well, that would throw a bottleneck into the real estate deal, because oftentimes you couldn't get those compliance reports in time. Title insurance companies said you don't have to get them anymore. You can rely on title insurance. So title insurance assume that risk. And if there was a work order, or if there was an open permit and the client found out about it after closing, then title insurance would have to respond to that. That would be a claim under the policy. And those claims can get very expensive. They can be a couple $100,000. You could have heard this before. You close the deal, they have title insurance, they find out there's an open permit. To get the permit closed, the inspector must go into the property. They find all kinds of things wrong with it. They need engineers' reports. They have to tear down the property, repair it. You can imagine that's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Open permit, work permits are very expensive claims for title insurance companies. Okay. Another head of coverage is what I call defensive title. Not only do you have what are called covered title risks, but as a holder of an insurance policy, the title insurance company has an obligation to defend your title. So if you own a property and you have title insurance and your neighbor is alleging that they own part of your property, however that could happen, then that may trigger what's called the duty to defend, meaning the insurance company, if your claim is valid, would have to hire a lawyer at their expense on your behalf to defend your title. That may mean negotiating, that may mean going to court. All kinds of things it could mean. You can see that could get expensive anytime you get litigation lawyers involved. You can see why lawyers like the idea of title insurance, although they resisted it. It provides a deeper pocket. I'm going to talk about liability now. So in the old days, as I said, if your lawyer gave you an assurance you had a marketable title and it turned out to be wrong, then your only remedy would be to sue the lawyer for negligence. Now you don't have to do that. Your first avenue of redress should be to make a title insurance claim. And if it's covered by the title insurance company, there's no need to sue the lawyer, go to court. The insurance company has a no-fault resolution to the claim. So it makes the process better for everybody. You don't have to prove fault. And ultimately, the client will have the homeowner will have a better experience without having to go to court. And of course, lawyers didn't really understand at the beginning, this is a good thing, and I don't even have to pay for it. In other words, the cost of the premium is paid for by the homeowner. Okay. So like I said, in terms of, we talked about coverage process. The lawyer does a search, the lawyer orders the policy. If there is a title defect or any kind of other problem on the policy, then it goes to the underwriting department of the insurance company. And I was one of the underwriters. So they would come in and say, here's the problem. What kind of coverage are we prepared to give? And this is where we help the lawyer close the deal, because whereas before the deal may not close over an encroachment over a title problem, the title insurance company would work with the lawyer to craft a solution and hopefully give them some kind of coverage which would allow the deal to close. So for just a garden variety example, if you had a survey and it showed an encroachment of something onto municipal property, I don't know how that would get resolved prior to title insurance. You might need to negotiate with the other lawyer. You might need an encroachment agreement. You might have to delay the closing. Now, what the lawyer does is they simply say to the insurance company, here's the problem, what's the coverage? And typically the insurance company will give what's called enforced removal coverage, meaning that they'll ensure that during the term of ownership, if anybody comes out and tries to exercise their right on that encroachment, the insurance company would say, we'll negotiate, we'll fix it. And then down the road, if that client if the homeowner sold the property and the same issue came up, they'll just insure over it again. So it allows the deal to close on time. Now, most deals do not require underwriting, although more and more because of fraud, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and they automatically process. So the insurance company just gives you a policy. Where it doesn't, then the lawyer has to work with the underwriter to see if they can get the best coverage possible. Sometimes when I'm selling a property for a client and there's a title problem, rather than try to find a solution which would take a lot of time and may not resolve the issue, I might call the title insurance company and say, here's the situation, would you insure this? And my answer to the buyer's lawyer would be, we can give you title insurance to solve this. And that lawyer may be forced to accept it. There's case law that goes both ways that says title insurance can be a valid answer to a requisition on title. So it essentially can help a deal close on time. Now, I want to talk about coverage. I've talked about coverage. I want to talk about the exceptions and the exclusions. What it doesn't cover. I already mentioned it doesn't cover your roof leaking, your foundation cracking. Other things that are not covered by the policy. Known defects. So for instance, if you know that there's a title defect, if there's an encroachment, and it's in the agreement of purchase and sale, you acknowledge it in the agreement, you can't later make a claim for that. That's called something you agreed to. You assumed that defect, you cannot make a claim for that. Environmental issues generally not covered by title insurance. I was just looking at a policy. Native land claims, I don't believe those are covered. And losses that you create. So for instance, a homeowner closes on a deal, builds something on their property without a permit, goes to sell that property 5 years, and it's uncovered that there's no permit. Title insurance company is going to say, you created that loss by not getting a permit. You cannot benefit from it. It's not covered. Another thing that is not covered is similar to what I just said, post-policy things. Anything, and there are exceptions to that, anything that happens after the policy date is not covered. Fraud is an exception to that, which we'll talk about. And claims that have no loss. So in other words, you could have a valid claim, but you don't have a loss. So what I would say to people is say, oh, I think I have a title insurance claim. And I'd say, well, what's your loss? Well, there's no loss. Well, then there's no claim. There's no point advancing a claim if you haven't suffered a loss. You have to prove your loss. You believe that you've lost 10 feet of your property? Well, prove it. And then if it's covered, they may say to you, okay, what's 10 feet worth? We'll compensate you for that. All of the policies have exceptions and exclusions. And they need to be read in conjunction with the covered title risks. Types of policies, we have a residential policy, which is the main one you'll be dealing with, and they have commercial policies. And like I said earlier, there are two types of policies. There's an owner policy and a lender policy. Lenders mandate title insurance. If they're mandating it, you might as well get an owner's policy as well. Okay, so I've talked about coverage. I've talked about, let me just jumping ahead here, talked about exceptions and exclusions. I've talked about policies. Now I want to talk about title fraud, because this is probably what everybody wants to talk about. And this is the main reason why everybody wanted title insurance. Now I'll go back a little bit in time. When I started working at First Canadian Title, there was no such thing as title fraud. It was thrown into the policy and everybody thought it'll never happen. Suddenly, I believe, I don't know when it started, but probably early 2000s, these weird, I was not in the claims department, but I was obviously closely associated with it. These weird claims started coming in where people were losing their title. Their title was being stolen. How can this happen? Well, fast forward now, we all know how it happens. You've got a very sophisticated criminal element, in many cases organized crime, that said, stealing cars is nothing. We could steal title. We could steal houses. There's way more money in that. So all of these weirdly weird, bizarre claims came in where people were saying, I got a letter from TD Bank telling me there's a mortgage on my property. And I don't have a mortgage on my property. How did this happen? It's called title fraud. So it generally starts, and I should say that if this is covered by title insurance, and it is probably, I can't speak for them, but I would imagine that of all the claims they pay, these are the most expensive, the most time consuming, and the most the ones that are most publicized, because everybody loves, real juicy fraud story. So it all started with a couple of major frauds, and I wasn't involved in them, but I was aware of them, where poor old people who've owned their houses forever were getting these letters from the bank saying, you defaulted on your mortgage. And they would go to the bank and say, I haven't had a mortgage for 20 years. They say, well, here it is. And, these fraudsters would impersonate people with fake IDs, fake documents, fake tax certificates, everything you can imagine. Go to a bank, say, I want to get a mortgage. Mortgage would be approved, sent to the lawyer, fake ID. Lawyer closes the deal, hands over the check to the fraudster. They disappear with the money. And who's left holding the bag? The homeowner. What does the homeowner do? They don't know what to do. You're puzzled. They didn't have title insurance. There was something called the Land Titles Assurance Fund. It was difficult. They'd have to hire a lawyer. Title insurance said, no, you don't need to do that anymore. They would have to pay off that mortgage and put title back in good stead. You can imagine when this started happening, these were huge claims. We're talking about $200,000, $300,000, $500,000, and it started happening. So what do the title insurance companies do? Well, rightfully, they got concerned, so they started an education campaign. And that campaign has still continued to this day. And I used to talk about fraud all the time. It was the only thing people wanted to talk about. So it all started with fake IDs, stolen identity. Now it's even more sophisticated. They're stealing. They are doing deals where they are buying properties, posing as tenants to the property, then listing the property for sale, selling it, getting the money and disappearing. And then it's a real mess because you've got the real homeowner who's lost his title and the new homeowner who says, I bought the house. The title insurance companies have to sort this mess out. What are the indicators of a fraud? There's lots of them. The warning signs that the title insurance companies look for are, number one, private deals. Deals that don't involve you as agents are easier because there's less eyes looking at the deal. Although recently, as I'm sure you're aware, there was a fraud about 6 or 8 months ago where even the real estate agents got fooled because they thought they were dealing with the real owner. So private deals their antenna go up when they see this. Private mortgages. That is the biggest source of fraud. So somebody who is loaning money on a private mortgage, non-bank mortgage, the title insurance companies, some of them will have either refused to insure them, or are making their underwriting so strict and it's becoming difficult to close those deals because they ask a lot of questions. Another major indicator of fraud is anything involving the power of attorney. Real estate agents, if you are doing a deal involving the power of attorney, you got to ask questions because the title insurance company is going to ask a lot of questions and they're going to underwrite the hell out of that by asking me a lot of questions. Where to get the client? Have you reviewed the power of attorney? Did you speak to the donor? Who's the donee? Have you acted for them before? All of these types of questions because the title insurance companies are nervous because they know the stats that these are likely to cause more losses in terms of fraud. Quick closings, and large increase in the value of the property. These are all the warning signs of a fraud. The fraudsters are interested in one thing: money. Somebody used to say to me, "How do you determine what happened? You follow the money. That's where you're going to get all of your answers." And it is the main reason why people want title insurance, is to protect themselves against fraud. So if you own a property and you don't have title insurance, I would suggest you get title insurance on your policy, on your property. And a lot of people would say, well, I'll just put a mortgage on my property and therefore there won't be any equity in it and therefore I won't have to worry about it. Not true. They'll just discharge it. So I would suggest you get title insurance. It'll give you peace of mind. And like I said, if you don't have it, you can get what's called an existing homeowner policy. You can get it yourself by calling a title insurance company, or you can get it through the services of a lawyer. So that is a discussion of fraud. I could talk about fraud for hours, but we don't have enough time to talk about it. Suffice to say that if you are a real estate agent, you need to know who your client is. You obviously have FinTrack, but if something doesn't look right or something doesn't smell right, Ask questions. You know, if you're taking a listing from somebody and you're not sure, ask them more pointed questions. I mean, you can ask for ID. How long have you lived there? How much did you pay for the house? There are a lot of things you can do to trip them up. You don't want to be involved in a fraud because automatically it's assumed that you were somehow a part of it. Same with lawyers who have been victimized by fraudsters. It's a horrible experience. It hasn't happened to me. That's not saying that it couldn't happen, but you really have to be careful. And if you're not sure, ask questions, because the title insurance companies have underwriters that are designed, and now programs that are designed to stop these, and they feel great when they stop them because they know that they've saved a lot of money and hopefully saved homeowners a lot of grief and everybody involved, because nobody wins when this happens. Mark, I've rambled on for about 55 minutes. I think it's time for some questions. What do you think?
I think that's an excellent idea, and I've really learned a lot today. This has been exceptional. So why don't we open it up, and anyone who does have questions, we have a bit of a smaller group today, and so maybe we can just have people unmute themselves and ask away. Who wants to be the first brave soul?
Hello, my name is Arthur. I'm a real estate agent. I have a quick question regarding bank. When bank sells the property and there is a loan on the property or issues, is that covered by title insurance?
Sorry, when the bank
Our sell.
Our sale. Yeah, the title insurance companies will issue a policy to somebody buying under power of sale. No question about it, they will. But when you're buying power of sale, you're getting everything as is. So for instance, let's say the title insurance company issues a policy to a homeowner buys power of sale, and it turns out that there's a work order, an open permit against the property. I don't think the title insurance company is going to cover that, because they're going to say, you bought power of sale. We're not going to give you more coverage than what you bargained for in the agreement of purchase and sale. So you will get a policy, but you won't get as much coverage as you would on a regular deal, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, who's up next?
I have a question. Let's say you bought a property back in 1990, and when you bought the property, there was no title insurance being offered. And several years later, your neighbor sells their property, puts the property on the market, you notice it, and you put on title insurance on your property to protect yourself, because you know that they're probably going to have title insurance because it was new back then. And at the time, your property was maybe worth $250,000.
Yep.
Can you update that policy to be a higher value, because the property today is probably worth $1.5 million?
Yep, you can buy additional coverage. They'll sell it to you, certainly.
So do you deal directly with them, or do you have to go through your lawyer?
You can do it either way.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
I have one
Sorry.
quick question. Sorry.
Yep, please, Samantha,
Hi.
go ahead.
Yes, it's Samantha. I'm a real estate agent. And I think it's just a refresher question, actually. When you started speaking about fraud, I started to think about my elderly clients and parents of some of my clients. When did title insurance actually become, I guess, more of a standard at purchase? I'm just thinking of an added value to be able to contact clients and just recommend to sort of, so they can bypass the fraud thing.
I would say late 90s became
Okay,
more the norm in the late 90s.
Okay, so anything pre-1999, it might be a question.
It could be something. The clients sometimes say, how do I know if I have it? I always tell them, look at the papers your lawyer sent you. If it's in there, then you have it. If it's not, you probably don't.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lauren, I'm just going to read something from someone who, fascinatingly, whose parents named them iPhone. I don't know how they didn't see a conflict there. But anyways, iPhone writes, hi, I had a client purchase property, and a few months later, his neighbor wanted to put up a fence onto his property. From my understanding, title insurance doesn't cover fencing. what would happen in this case? So I guess what's the recourse when title insurance doesn't cover in fence disputes?
Civil. I mean, he'd have to, you know, if he wants to engage a lawyer, I mean, he could make a title insurance claim. There's no cost in making a claim. They'll just, if they don't cover it, they just say it's not covered. If it's not covered by title insurance, their only remedy would be to get a litigation lawyer to fight.
Very good. Okay, we have time for one more, guys. Who wants to be the last person to ask a question?
I have a follow-up if nobody else does.
Hit it up, Sam.
I'm just curious if you don't, so you purchased pre-1999 and you don't have title insurance and you're a victim of one of these title frauds, what would the homeowner do?
Well, there is a land title compensation fund. They'd have to make an application to the compensation fund. And I don't know if you might need a lawyer to do that. I don't think it's going to be as easy as making a title insurance claim, because once you make a title insurance claim, they basically run with it. I think you're going to have more of a difficult time dealing with the compensation fund than you would if a title insurance company on your behalf.
And for somebody to purchase that as an existing homeowner, is it about the same one-time flat rate?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's based on the value of the property. So if your house is worth, you know, what I say to clients is, if you want it now, I can get it for you. You can get it yourself. What do you want to add? What do you want to make the value of the, you know, what's the value of the property? That's the insurance amount that you should get. Pay a little, you know, don't underinsure. If you think your house is worth $1 million, get $1 million worth of insurance.
Lorne, I lied. One more written question for you, and then we'll call it. Is there a limitation period for tax or water arrears to make a claim?
I don't believe so. No.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that brings us to a conclusion. You know what, Lorne, I'm just going to end off on this note. It's very evident when people speak with us who have deep experience in their field. It's very clear you are one of those people. Those people who do not believe that there is a quantifiable difference between lawyers, particularly in the residential conveyance space, only really need to watch this video to understand exactly how deep that experience can go. When you are having title insurance issues, when you are having questions regarding title insurance, Lorne is really an authority on the subject, as he's proven today, and we're incredibly grateful to have been able to pick his brain, listen to him. Lorne, I'll be posting this on our sessions, and I will highlight it as the go-to title insurance video, because I think it was a really good summation and overview. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you sincerely for everyone who attended, and looking forward to getting this up on the forum so more people can enjoy it.
Thanks, Mark. I've enjoyed it.
Very good. Thank you, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.